everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Zachary Dickinson here. Hope you're all having a wonderful week, a wonderful day as well. It's the middle of the week, so if it's not a wonderful week, you're halfway through. If it is a wonderful week, well, you're still halfway through and halfway to the weekend. Weekend is always great. It's a break from work, if it is. If not, it's still the weekend, the end of the week, and towards the beginning of a new week. So, with that being said, today's video is Superman and Lois is the best Clark Kent that I have seen. That is one hell of an opening statement. What do I mean by that? Well, I have seen Smallville. I have seen Superman and Lois. I've seen the Justice League animated show. And I've seen Man of Steel. Any other Superman adaptations I have not seen. I would love to see the Brandon Routh Superman. I'm sure he is great. But, so basically it's pretty much from the year 2000, give or take, with the only takeaway from the thing is Brandon Routh Superman. I am not saying he's the best Superman. I am saying Tyler Hoechlin's portrayal of Superman / Clark Kent is the best Clark Kent I have seen. Now, I have seen all of Smallville, and I am not really going to say I'm not. It's more so and I'm not gonna count Smallville that much in context with as Superman and Clark Kent because they kind of played around with it, and he's not really Superman until the last 10 seconds of the show. It's more so like a prequel before Superman. So, yeah. I'm also not a comic reader, so this is just from what I've seen. So, that's the preamble. I have a few breakdown points, so let's get into it. Alright, so I have 4 points to break down today. The first one is, what is Superman and Lois, since not everyone has likely seen it. But a lot of people probably have. It aired on the CW and later would be added to HBO Max as well. So what is Superman and Lois? Well, Tyler Hoechlin's Superman, I'll first derive it from how it began. So Tyler Hoechlin's Superman first appeared in season 2 of Supergirl, and would make sporadic appearances as Superman in both Supergirl and The Crisis, or other crossover, or other on Crisis on Infinite Earths, Earth X, and other crossover type of big calamity events that obviously Superman would and should be a part of. And so after Crisis on Infinite Earths, where ultimately Arrow ended and the big whole crossover fest ended as a whole, we had 1 or 2 other crossovers after that point, but that was the end of the big crossovers. Superman and Lois was one of the spin-off shows that pretty much got off-branded from this. Now, the only major thing with continuity is, yes, Supergirl is still his cousin. However, Superman and Lois is almost in a whole different universe than the rest of the Arrowverse. Why do I say that? Well, because in season 1 of Supergirl, we have a black Jimmy Olsen. However, in the final season of Superman and Lois, we have a white Jimmy Olsen appearing. Just want to point that out there. They are basically the same one because Jimmy Olsen comes over to Supergirl City to help her, and he already knows Superman's identity. Whereas Superman and Lois, the Jimmy Olsen there kind of knows, but doesn't truly know Superman's identity for a long while. So there's that big thing. And so we follow Clark Kent / Superman trying to save the world constantly. He's basically the only hero in the whole world for the entirety of Superman and Lois, and it kind of gets the Superman family involved around with him, but it's taking a toll, and he has 2 twin teenage sons, and they're fraternal, meaning they aren't identical. They're just twin sons, but they are not they don't look the same, is what I mean. So he balances the role of husband, father, friend, son, and the world's greatest hero. And so he balances all these rules and all these different hats, um and he's also like 50, give or take. But in Kryptonian age, he's like 35 to 40. Earthly 50, Kryptonian like 35, 40. And so that's pretty much the breakdown of what is Superman and Lois and how we got to the show itself. So, what makes this Clark Kent different from the rest? We see an earthly side of him and also many iterations of Superman, thusly and rightly so, portray and primarily show Superman. And so I'll break down many instances of different parts of how he shows Clark Kent and also shows more of a human side and not just the hero role. So first we have he for the first time really in most iterations we have the fact that we that Clark Kent has not one but two sons in both Jonathan and Jordan Kent. And then one of the sons gets powers, but by season 4 the other one in Jonathan gets powers. Jordan first, then Jonathan, but through other means mostly. Now then, so we have Jordan, then Jonathan getting powers, and the struggle of raising not one but then both sons with powers. And then so now we also have him moving from Metropolis over to Smallville due to his own mother's death. And then he goes from a job as a reporter to nearly a volunteer like job as an assistant coach on the football team with Smallville, the high school. So then we also see that he is constantly struggling with not only keeping up with the whole planet and saving it all the time as the only hero, but he's also starting to struggle a little bit with the mental toll that it's having, and so his powers start to act up in season 1. So through all of this, we have Martha Kent's death, him constantly adapting and changing lifestyles and environments, and still being the only hero around while facing with a variation of different villains, including a guy who was married to Lois in another world, but Superman was evil and killed her. And so he wants to hunt down this Superman and kill him in revenge. We have Superman's brother, Tal-Rho. We have Ali Alston. We have Tal-Rho wants to give all these Kryptonians new bodies and stuff. We have Ali Alston who wants to discover a new dimension, which gives way to Bizarro Superman, which then Bizarro then eventually becomes Doomsday, who is then used to kill Superman. Yes, actually kill. And we also have ultimately Superman's foil, just like Joker is to Batman, Lex Luthor in the final season. So now, with all that, with how this Clark Kent is different, what makes him so different from the rest? What are the other Clark Kents like? Well, in iterations like Man of Steel and the Justice League animated show, we mostly only see Superman. And we see some of his background, but it's mostly only in flashbacks and not really all that much of Clark Kent in and of himself. So we have both Man of Steel and just Justice League as mostly primary Superman as or Superman roles, whereas we have the Smallville, which only focuses on Clark Kent, which doesn't make it that good of a comparison to this because this is an adult seasoned Clark Kent while balancing Superman constantly, whereas Smallville is a teenage to adult becoming Superman at the end. This is all about him going from about 14 years old until he's in his early 20s. He's with Lois, and he's now Superman. Whereas we have the second best portrayal of Clark Kent in the new Superman movie that came out last year in 2025, which was the fact that we have David Cornsweet's Superman, which the movie itself mostly focuses on Superman, but it does put heavy emphasis on who Clark Kent is as a reporter, his upbringing and background with both of his parents alive, and we see a down to earth side of Superman while also still keeping a good balance with Clark Kent and Superman. So, yeah, that is me discussing in three different ways. It was four, but I mostly summed it up more in just those three, and so I didn't want to rant on and repeat myself too much more than I already have. But that was three different ways portraying and showing and breaking down why I think Tyler Hecklin's, aka Superman and Lois's portrayal of Clark Kent, is the best. So, hope you've watched. If you've watched this video all the way through, hope you like it. Subscribe to, and hit that notification bell. Be looking out for another video on Friday about an anime I watched recently called Spirit Chronicles. It's an isekai, a new one, well, relatively new. Waiting on season 3. Don't know what Saturday's video will be, but I'll say what it is on Friday. Hope you all like this video. Hope you all had a wonderful day. Hope you all had a continue to have a wonderful week. And I thank you all for watching. God bless. Goodbye.